Wow, that was a packed event. So, Apple just held their keynote for April of this year, and they announced a bunch of new products, actually more than I think they ever announced at one event in 1 hour. So let's go through what they announced and what I think of the new stuff. Okay, so let's start out with the less interesting stuff and then move on to the really interesting stuff with the new iMac and the new iPad Pro. In a move that I think nobody expected, Apple started out with the new purple iPhone 12 and iPhone 12 mini. I think the color looks reasonably nice. It's not really my type of color, but I think for all of the people who were missing the purple iPhone 12 because that existed before with the iPhone 11, they now have something that finally fits their needs. After that, Apple spent I think only just 2 minutes talking about AirTags, which I think was a lot less time than I would think that they would spend on that. But we finally got them, and they're $29 for one and $99 for a pack of 4. Which I also think is a lot cheaper than I expected and that I think a lot of people expected. If you're unfamiliar, they can basically be attached to anything that you could lose, so your keys, luggage, whatever, and then you can find that with the Find My app on your iPhone, just like you can also locate your iPhone or your iPad with that app. It basically integrates everything into the Find My app on your iPhone. I also think that this makes sense for Apple to do this because there are a lot of iOS devices out there. So if anyone can pull a system off where the devices can actually be found because enough people carry the devices with the app on it in order to locate the devices, then it's actually Apple. Because the reason why Tile basically failed is because not enough people used it in order to locate the Tile trackers. Because how it works is you need to be in the vicinity of one of those trackers in order for the network to know where it is and to show the person that lost that item where that item is. I think the new Apple TV was also something that no one really expected. Of course, you now have better colors and all that, it's still a 4K model, but you also have a new remote that has a better Siri button placement, a little bit of a different interface. Other than that, it's basically just a refresh of the old Apple TV. But now onto the really interesting stuff that I also want to spend the most time on. The new iMacs, and after that, the new iPad Pros. The new iMacs basically look like what we expected from the leaks before, at least from the back. From the front, you don't have that new design that we expected with the small bezels that would look like an iPad Pro. Instead, they basically look the same as the old iMacs, still with the thick bezel at the bottom, which I think doesn't actually look as nice as I would have liked. Also, you have white bezels on the front, which I think is a nice nostalgia thing, but I don't think that it really looks that nice with all of the colors. I think that a black bezel option would have also been a nice idea. On the back, you have 4 Thunderbolt 4 ports, which is nice to see. But there's no other I/O, which I think is a bit of a bummer, because the iMacs used to be the Macs that actually did still have reasonably good I/O in the past. But there is an Ethernet port on the power brick if you still need that. Along with all of the new colors of the new iMacs, you also get fitting Magic keyboards, also with Touch ID now, and fitting new Magic mice and Magic trackpads. I think that's pretty nice that they're available in all of these colors now, and I hope that Apple will also sell these separately, but I'm not sure because they didn't do that with the iMac Pro and the black keyboard either. The new iMacs don't have any new chips in them, it's still the M1 that we know from the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro, so what you get for the $1299 price point is basically a Mac Mini with an integrated display, speakers, webcam and all of that stuff. I think that's not that bad of a price, and I think that it's definitely a good iMac to replace all of the old iMacs that you see at reception desks, or in home offices, or at your doctor's office, for example, but it's definitely not a pro machine that you will use for video editing or stuff like that. For that, you will probably want to wait for the new 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pro that will have a faster chip, probably the M1X or whatever it's going to be called, and maybe Apple will also release new iMacs with that faster chip. But despite it not being that powerful, I actually think Apple made the perfect replacement for the old iMac, because think of where you see iMacs. You see those at reception desks, in your doctor's office, in your home office, in places where you don't really need a computer that has super big power, but just one that looks kind of cool and still performs adequately. And that is, I think, what Apple definitely nailed with the new iMac. Also, can we just quickly talk about how the new Magic Keyboard still doesn't have a backlight and how the Magic Mouse still charges from the bottom? I mean, what the hell, Apple? And lastly, you of course have the new iPad Pros. The changes weren't as major as maybe some would have expected, but you still get the new M1 chip in the iPad Pros, which I think is a nice addition. Of course, though, the old iPad Pros were already the fastest tablets around without any competition, so I think that this upgrade doesn't really change anything substantially. It just makes the already fastest tablet even faster. What it does enable is that the new iPads actually do have Thunderbolt 4 now. And of course, the bigger version does have Apple's new mini LED XDR display. The 11-inch version unfortunately doesn't come with that. That still has the old display from the old iPad Pro, which I think is a bit of a bummer because people who want a smaller tablet don't get that upgraded display. Mini LED is basically a blend between OLED and the old LED displays, in that it has a lot of LEDs as the backlight of your LED display, so it can kind of go at OLED's capability of only lighting up certain sections of the screen. The new iPads are available at the same price as the old ones, and there's also a new white Magic Keyboard to go along with them. I actually thought about getting one of the new iPad Pros, but I think it's definitely a bummer that the 11-inch version doesn't have the new display, because I would have definitely liked the smaller version, because I mostly use it as something to jot down notes or to annotate PDFs. And for that, I don't really need the 12-inch version, as I do already have a laptop as well. So I think that's kind of a bummer that Apple didn't do that. I think overall, these new iPads didn't really change a whole lot about your buying proposition for an iPad Pro. If you wanted an iPad Pro before, then you still want one now. If you didn't need one before, you still don't need one now. It's kind of just the same thing, just a bit blown up in specs. What we didn't see was a new iPad mini, also no new AirPods, and no new Apple Pencil. Maybe those things come at a later date. I'm also still looking forward to new Macs with the faster M1 chips, like the M1X or something like that, because that is really what I'm looking forward to, the faster performance that can actually match what we now have with the 16-inch MacBook Pro and the dedicated GPU in that one. But for that, we'll probably have to wait until WWDC, which is already like 6 weeks from now or something like that. Crazy, definitely a lot happening right now, and it's crazy again that Apple could push so many things into this 1 hour of an event. But that's everything that Apple announced today and my thoughts on the new devices. If you enjoyed this video, you know which buttons to press. Don't forget to press that follow button on Twitter, and don't forget your mask if you have to leave the house. I'm Brian, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.